welcome to Firebird Tech. My name is Nick, and today's video is going to be about my switch or gradual transition from a complete Apple ecosystem, iMac, MacBook Pro, iPhone 3GS, through to Windows/Android. So, Sony Vaio Fit 15A for my laptop over Sling, iMac to Blood, and well, more or less Nokia E71 to iPhone to HTC One M7. Which I bought out last year. So that's going to be the devices I'm going to compare today. So that's the transition. That's the devices I've transitioned from to two. So each of those will get a very much a comparison in power, i.e. computational power, battery life, screen size, screen clarity, those sorts of things. Things that kind of make a difference. And sort of a nostalgic hit for some who know the E71. So that's one thing that will get covered today, is pretty much past versus present devices that I'm using. Also I'll go into more detail how I actually killed my MacBook Pro. Now as I was saying, there is a device missing from here, and that is the iPhone 3GS that I was borrowing to have a bit of a trial if I've actually wanted to buy an iPhone 3GS. But I decided not to. I hung around with the E71 until it completely died on me, and then I moved off to the HTC One, but we'll get into more detail like that. One thing I will want to clear up right now, whilst I'm talking about devices, is yes, I went for Android over Windows. I'm not a complete Microsoft fanboy, like I was an Apple fanboy. So yeah, again, that's just personal preference because it was the best thing out there at the time. The last thing to cover will be, which will be quite a long chunk of video, will be how the transition from Apple to Windows/Android has affected the way I interact with the world as a whole, as a big ball of the internet has grown up around me. So sitting there on Facebook, YouTube, those sorts of things, through to doing university work and high school work, how that change has affected what applications I use, the way I do work, the way I submit my work, all those sorts of things, which we'll go into much more detail in the end. So without further ado, and I'll be quiet now and we'll get onto the bench and we'll go and compare these devices. So let's go. Right, first up on the comparison table, well, first couple of bits of comparison, is the Nokia E71 on this side and the HTC One on this side. And sorry for the upside down hands from top camera angle, because I'm actually sitting here as opposed to there. So anyway, enough about the camera. Phones. So this phone. It's had a very hard life. As you can see, there's a port cover missing. The screen is scratched to absolute buggery. The keypad here is actually chipped and dinted. I don't know if you guys can actually see that. But yeah, it's missing as a key. The T key is completely smashed up. There's scratches all along it. The Wi-Fi doesn't work on it, and it actually doesn't even turn on. That's why the battery's not in the back of it, is because it doesn't actually turn on. I have worn it out that much. Admittedly, this phone is 4 years old. So yeah, a few things to note. Yes, I'm going to pull out the verniers. For all those Americans out there, the diagonal screen size on this thing is just roughly 2.335 inches, or yeah, 59.3 mil. Now, if you compare the overall diagonal length of this phone, it's about 120 mil. Oops, sorry, that's off frame. 117 point, ish mil for those yanks. 4.6 inches. Now, if you compare that to actual size of the HTC One phone, it's actually the whole size of just the screen. So this phone is the size of just the screen on this one, which is where a lot of the comparisons come into play with these two phones being in comparison, is that the screens come into it. This is a tiny little, as I said, 2.5 inch diagonal screen that is, for memory, it's 640 by 480, so bugger all resolution in it, which means it was very blocky even for its day. I had screens not much bigger than this that were 1280 by 800 on mobile phones. So yeah, and you compare this to this phone here, which is 1920 by 1080, so 1920 by 1080, I believe. Yeah, full 1080p high definition on a screen that's like literally the size of this phone. And you kind of can see that I do like my metal construction on phones. This one's made of stainless steel, this one's made of aluminium, or aluminum for those Americans again. But they have almost similar features. They both have IR blasters, so you can actually control a TV off either phone. They both have cameras with flashes. They both have a volume rocker on the side. Although this one has, I got a little extra button which just came in handy for like hanging up calls and stuff like that. Although you can do that in software with this phone. So yeah, it's a good comparison of the phone. The other thing that's very different on these is the software support, the app library. The total amount of apps for this phone is just shy from memory of about 300 apps you could ever get for this phone, and most of them were paid apps, i.e. you actually had to pay money for them. This phone, you got the Google Play Store under your belt, so you're talking several, I think like several million apps for this phone, and about 40% of them are free. So the value of the phone, i.e. the expandable functionality of these phones, this one wins way out on the other one because of that Android ability. The other thing to think about is the power of these phones. This one's a effective single core little SoC, or system on a chip, which means it's a fully integrated device. There's one chip on this thing that does everything from drive the display to doing all the RF gear, i.e. GSM, 3G network. This one was actually a 3G phone. Even like stuff like the headphone audio stuff was all controlled via that SoC. So literally everything was controlled via one chip. It does actually have microSD expansion, which is one thing that this phone doesn't have, which is a kind of humming and hawing. But when this one came with only like 2 gig of memory, or 2 gig of storage, you kind of needed an SD expansion. But this one's 16, so it's like, yeah, it's kind of one of those kind of half-half things. Let's just zoom out a bit so you guys can actually see my hands. This one, yeah, HTC M1 and sorry, yeah, HTC 1M7. I'll get that right eventually. As I was saying, 4.7 inch-ish touchscreen. Beautiful screen, especially when you don't have it in a case. Which is the big difference between these two phones. Is this one practically always lives in an OtterBox Defender case, which is a multi-piece tank for a case. Also, one thing you notice is these phones aren't much thicker than each other, especially at this end. They aren't much thicker than each other. Of course, this one's a bit wider because of the bezel, so I'll do it this way. Of course, they're a bit taller, but in general, these phones aren't that necessarily different to each other in physical size. And that's one thing why I went for this phone over something like the S4 at the time, or something like the Note or something else. It was a nice size. It wasn't much larger than this phone, which I had been carrying around for the last 4 years. So it wasn't much of a step up. It wasn't much of a adaptation or much of a change of habit to go up to this phone. And really, it was my first touchscreen phone to actually own as my daily driver. As I said, there is a phone missing from here, which is the iPhone 3GS, just because it was only a borrow, and that's got me into wanting a smartphone. But I held out until this one literally died on me. I was hearing rumors of this phone. It was only sort of really solidly built phone at the time. It's still one of the most solidly built phones on the market. And now they're coming down in price because the M8s come out, the new models come out. So it's very, very good to see these phones still being sold for what they actually are, which is an incredible phone. So just something to keep into mind. Again, the other thing that's kind of different on these two is the sound jack. I don't know if I can get these in view. Let's see if we can get these in focus. Hang on. Elevator music needed. There we go. So as you can see, this one's 2.5mm jack. This one's a 3.5mm jack, which means you needed special headphones for this one, or an adapter, which would have made this thing so much wider. It isn't funny. This one's just a standard 3.5mm jack. It's like genius. As I said, both of these have IR blasters on them, as you can see. So you can actually control TV with either of these. There was actually an app for this to control TV with it. Again, volume rocker. Oops, sorry, way out of frame as usual. Amateur YouTuber. As you can see, they both have rockers and stuff like that. But yeah, they're pretty much both phones. Let's refocus. Come on. That's having trouble. frack it. I'll keep it out of view for the time being. Anyway, so you can see the two phones. Now the reason why I went for this phone, I was going to go for Android no matter what. That was just purely a preference choice. The other thing is, this was pretty nice phone. Again, size was a big factor of me picking this phone. But what does this phone bring to the table? What is the benefit of going to this phone from this phone? What did it allow me to do? And the big thing is apps. The big thing is Flash Player. So it means that I can open PowerPoint documents on this phone. I can open Word documents on this phone, as I couldn't on this phone. So I actually have Kingston Office on this phone. It's one of my main apps. I don't know if I can zoom in. Let's see if we can get this. Here we go. So we'll zoom out a bit. As you can see, the usual Dropbox, Drive, Facebook, Combank, it's all good. But as you can see, there's Kingston Office. Oops, emails. Wrong button. So as you can see, this is Kingston Office. I don't know what that is. Ooh, that's that. Doop-a-doo. Oops. Can't show you guys that because that's my warrant. So as you can see, it's Office, which is really handy. So that's one reason why I went for this phone, is the ability to run Office, full Office, like PowerPoint, Excel, Word sheets, Word documents on this, everything. Very, very handy. Also the ability to like tram tracker and stuff like that is also a very handy skill. This one does not have Dropbox support, doesn't have Google Drive support or anything like that. So it's handy to have that cloud storage on this device as well. Also it's handy to have like the social media stuff as well. This one doesn't have any social media at all. Like, you don't have a Facebook app for this phone. Although you do, it just links you back to a web page. Go fig. Just loops you back to the browser on this. Another thing is, there's only one type of one browser on this as well. The one thing that this kicks ass over this is the emails. This thing has the widest compatibility for emails I have ever seen on any phone. The stock app that comes on the HTC One, it takes a bit of finickiness to get emails running and emails syncing correctly, and when you delete an email off this, it deletes it off the server, that sort of stuff. This one does it beautifully. It's about the only thing I still like about this phone occasionally. But yeah, that was my daily phone for 4 years. This one's been my daily phone for just going on a year. Yeah, it would be a year now. So yeah, so that's the comparison of my phones. I'm going to put this back into a phone case so it doesn't get damaged, and we'll move on to laptops. So I'll be back. Okay, next thing on the table is laptops. Sorry about the crazy camera angle too, because it's the only way I can get 3 laptops on one bench at the one time. So, first laptop, chronologically, left to right, is oldest, middle, newest, current laptop. So this is a compact, or HP/compact brick, literally. It's a Prestaro M2000. Presaro M2000. I may put it in the description below. It literally dates from the year 2000. It was my laptop before I had this one, the MacBook Pro. So it's gonna go on the floor. Okay. Next up is the MacBook Pro, which has been through literal hell. It's actually not even worth repairing anymore. Yeah. So, dual-core 2.26 GHz as opposed to the dual-core quad threads. This is not hyper-threaded, this is. And this one runs up to like 4 GHz. It has 6 GB of RAM in it. Did not come stock like that. That's a upgrade I did. Came stock with 4 GB. I came stock with 200 and something gig drive. I think it was 240 gig. Mechanical hard drive that ran at 5400 RPM that I kept killing. The keyboard's effectively worn out. Screen's still good on it though, so that's something. Touchpad's still the best feeling touchpad I've ever known on a laptop. So, to go into a bit more detail, how I actually managed to kill this laptop, what we're going to do is we're going to do a bit of a switcheroo here. Doop-a-doop. Zoop. Doop-a-doo. Don't mind the sugar. So pretty much, come on, should be able to focus on that. Okay, so pretty much what's happened with the laptop is you can see RAM here, battery, usual insides of a MacBook Pro 13-inch 2010. Under here is the CPU. Pretty much what happened with it is I managed to somehow kill the PCIe lanes. So I managed to kill the PCIe controller on the actual CPU. Because what was happening was I wasn't actually able to boot off this drive or this drive, off the CD-ROM drive. So CD-ROM or let's zoom out. So either of these two drives could not boot off of it at all. Now I started probing this little chip down here, which is, we're probably not going to be able to have a look at that, but that's the SATA controller chip, so that's what controls both of these. Now I was getting data from these devices into the chip, and I was getting data out of that chip heading towards the CPU. So what I did was I started probing around the CPU and found out, well, it's going into the CPU, but the CPU itself isn't picking it up. And it wasn't sending data back to this chip, so this thing was going, yes, I have data for you, but this thing's saying, no, you don't. So CPU was actually dead. I actually managed to kill a CPU somehow. So the RAM's just in here as a placeholder just for pure convenience, and that's it. But yes, I managed to kill a MacBook Pro, which is a very rare achievement among many people. So yeah, and as you can see, this thing has also gone through literal hell because all this is polished. This isn't actually stippling, it's polishing due to the amount of time and wear this thing has gone through. It's missing feet, for crying out loud. So yeah. Now, so that's laptop 2. Which can go on. Laptop 3, which I have done a full review, overview, teardown, whatever you used to call it. Which will be linked in the description below. So this is my current laptop, dual core, quad threads with hyper threaded, 4 GB, goes up to, yeah, it's an Intel Core i7 4500U, 8 GB of RAM. It's got an SSHD in it, like beautiful display, better than the Apple, which is sitting on the floor right now. So what we'll do is we'll go way back out to a crazy view, like so, and we'll pick up this one, and we'll put them side by side, and we'll go through some comparisons of the two, as we're in focus, which that is definitely not going to go in focus. Come on. There we go. So, the main comparison between these two laptops is the size. This is a 13-inch, this is a 15-inch. But personally, I don't. This one's actually lighter than this one, so it doesn't really fuss me. I actually do like having the extra real estate, like physical real estate of the screen, which is really handy to have. Sorry about that. So really handy to have that extra real estate of 15-inch 1080p screen, as opposed to a 13-inch display, which is 1200 by 800. Oh, yeah, thereabouts. I think it's 1200 by 800. Could be 1280 by 800. But anyway, yeah, a lot less of a resolution on a 2-inch less screen. Now, the thing I actually do like about this laptop is the magnetic charge feature as opposed to the plug type on this one, but that's just a personal preference thing. It just makes it super easy, and if you've got small children running around, it's fairly easy to have there. But yeah, so the main things that difference between these two is the battery life. I get about 4.5 hours of use on this one, and I got easily 10 hours, maybe 11 hours on this one during a day. So battery life definitely was better on the Mac. This is because they can control everything to do with the hardware inside that laptop. So they can control every tiny bit of hardware inside the MacBook Pro, which means they can control power usage much better. They can optimize the hardware to give you that 12 hours of the battery life. Although they claim 8 or 6 sometimes. If you just turn down the screen brightness a bit and do a few other tweaks and mods, you can get 10, 11, 12 hours out of a battery out of this thing. This one I can push to 6 if I really need to, but then it becomes almost unusable because of the low brightness of the screen. Color fidelity is very low. Yeah, makes it look not very good, but you do get your battery life out of it. So yeah, and the other really nice feature about this laptop is purely the convertibility of it. Is the ability to physically convert it into a tablet. We'll put this in focus. So the ability to convert this thing into a tablet is the killer feature here. Is it's a laptop or it's a tablet, and Apple simply does not have a product like that out on the market today. So this is something that really does kill us. Now, admittedly, this thing's about another $500 more expensive than what this is. So that's kind of your caveat. You're paying $500 more for something that's double more powerful and has 2 inches bigger screen. So yeah. Now the big thing is the apps I've used on the Mac as opposed to the Windows machine hasn't changed that much. I still use Office. I even use the same version of Office, so 2007, 2000, I think it was 8, but yeah, same era, same iteration of Office on both machines. Like pretty much it's the same setup on both machines. There's not a lot of actual change between these two machines. So yeah, so there's not much actual difference between these two machines. So that's the comparison between those two, or three if you want to include the other machine. If you want rough specs on the other machine, it's single core, dual thread, runs at like 1.8 gigahertz and has like 2 gig of RAM. And that's it. So that's that other machine. I'm going to go into the screen. So that's that screen. Now I'm going to show you a different part of the bench, or different part of the room, so we can have a look at the iMac. I'll boot the iMac up and everything, so you guys can have a look at it where it sits right now in my room. And we'll go through the comparison between the iMac and Blood, which is just off screen there. So we'll go do that now. Okay guys and girls, this is a different section of my room that you will probably never see ever again in the lifetime of my YouTube channel. It sits here, this iMac sits here because, well, there's nowhere else to put it and I still like to use it occasionally. It is now running Windows as well. It is a mid-2006 iMac. It was sort of the medium-ish range one at the time. So yeah, it's pretty standard thoroughfare. Where are we? Doo-ba-doo. Let me get this order. Yeah, so it's dual core as you can see here. Pretty standard thoroughfare. It's like 1.8 gigahertz dual core, Intel Core 2 Duo. This is why I was running Windows 7, not Mac now, because I've completely moved myself away from Apple, although I still use its hardware. So yeah, it's running, well, right now, it's running 2 gig of memory, because, well, that's all it can, in theory, run. You can put 4 in it, but you can't really use much of it. It is only a 32-bit operating system, so there's no point putting anything larger than 4 gig in it, because, well, Windows won't be able to pick it up, or not even the Apple will pick it up. So that's the sort of specs of the machine. This did come with like a 120 gig hard drive. It now has a 320 gig hard drive in it, because the old one died and I just had to replace it, and I've just slowly upgraded it as I went. It did actually originally come with 512 meg of RAM, it now has again 2 gig in it. So it's just those sorts of things that have rolled over time. So yeah. So that's a little rig. So this was my main rig for 6 years before I went and built Blood, which we'll go into very rough detail of, because there will be a much more in-depth detail video coming up much later on, or probably maybe the video after this one or the video after that one will be my room tour where you'll see Blood. You'll see much more in-depth of the gear I use. So yeah, this is my little iMac. Still runs, still functions. Now you may be able to see, I don't know if you can see it, yeah, you can just see it in the video. You can see these sort of vertical lines running on the screen. These are actual like errors in the screen. Actually, we may be able to zoom in and then refocus the camera. Ooh, if it's gonna focus. Hang on, whoa, bear with me. Oh, come on, be nice. There we go. You can just see there in the center of the screen, there's a couple of lines running down the screen here. There's actually a few more that you may not be able to see in the display. These were caused due to, well, I live in Australia where summers get up to 40 degrees C very regularly. So what actually happened was, of course there's a ribbon cable. There's a ribbon cable across the top here inside the display that effectively baked off, and I got in there with a heat gun and managed to rebake on most of the connections, but some of them aren't quite perfect, so you get a few lines. I actually dealt with this for about a year and a half before I started to build Blood. So yeah. Now a lot of people ask me, what's really the comparison between Blood? Blood is so much more powerful. It's a fully built system. Why didn't you just buy another AIO, like another iMac or one of the now Windows AIOs that have come out? And the question was, well, At the time, it was the only AIO out. Mid-2006, 2005, 2004 even, and even till late 2008, iMac was still the only all-in-one, fully complete desktop that all you had to plug into the damn thing was a keyboard and a mouse and a PowerPoint, and presto, you have a computer. The only sort of comparison at the time was laptops. And really, this thing had more power than most laptops around at that time, purely because you had that extra thickness, that extra size. Of course, we won't be tearing this apart in this video or anything like that, but yeah, all the main board is just down here, so it's actually, the motherboard is actually about the same size as the motherboard in the Sony Vaio laptop, which is amazing. But you can see that 6 years or 7, 8 years of technology have kind of made the laptop much more powerful for the same physical real estate. So that's enough about this rig. I will now move over to Blood, and we'll sort of give you a very brief overview of Blood, because it will be a much more in-depth video about Blood when we're talking about the room tour. So I'll shut up about this and we'll go over to Blood. Okay, this is Blood. My now main rig, as it has been replaced, is the replacement for the iMac. As you can see, this has 3 monitors hooked up to it. It's not 3 separate machines, it's actually 1 machine. So yeah, the rough specs of this, as I was saying with this one, is quad-core octa-thread, has a single 660 Ti graphics card, as opposed to, I didn't mention this one, the other one. The other one has a ATI Radeon X1600 graphics card in it. It has like 256 meg of graphics, as opposed to the 660 Ti in this one, that has 2 gig of graphics. So yeah, the other things are the 3 drives that are in it. It's got an SSD for primary drive, it's a Intel one. Again, all this will cover much more in detail when we go through the room tour, which will maybe the next video or maybe video after, I don't quite know. So yeah, that's Blood, the keyboards and the mice. So the advantage of this one over the iMac, which is that way somewhere, is effectively the powerhouse. It is a powerhouse of a rig. As you can well and truly see. It's allowed me to have a much higher productivity rating as opposed to, or productivity in general, over the iMac. Yeah, it's a powerhouse rig. Plus it's expandable. This is something the iMac isn't. The iMac is upgradable to a limit. This computer can just be completely reconfigured as much as I like. So that's one great thing about this machine. But again, the exact specs and how crazy the internals are and stuff like that will be covered much more in detail in the room tour. So that's the comparison of those two. Now, app list changes drastically between Windows and Mac when you're talking desktop. Laptop, not so much. My laptop configuration will not change so much. But when we're talking desktops, the desktop has changed a lot more. The primary apps that have changed between the two platforms are stuff like my web browser, because of course Safari isn't on desktop, or Safari. Yeah, Safari isn't on a Windows, so I've changed over much more to Google Chrome / Firefox for most of my usage. I refuse to use IE, as anyone who has a brain should do, because it's truly that crap. So yeah, what else has changed really? App-wise, again, this was built much more as a productivity rig than a gaming rig, which is why it has a 2011 chipset in it, as opposed to something like a mainstream chipset like an 1150 or 1155 chip, or 1156 chip. It wasn't a commercial basis. It's built on a productivity platform from Intel. So I think that's enough about Blood. So that's the comparison of the two rigs. So yeah, we'll now go into the way this change has changed the way I do everything. Okay, this bit of the video is about the change, more or less the effect of the change. So rough changes, or rough guidelines for this bit of the video are rig by rig, or type by type of device, and how that changed, and how that has changed. The amount of time I now spend on the devices, the way I now use the devices, and also the way that fits into my life now, and that sort of thing. So let's get on to it. So the first thing that I changed over was the big rig behind me, going from the iMac through to the Blood. Admittedly, the 3 monitors didn't come first. I only had one. I only had this monitor here before I got that one. That other one was a freebie about the same time as I got this middle one. So I kind of went from 1 to 3 monitors, which is insane. So yeah, first thing to cover, how much time do I now spend? I do spend a bit more time than I used to on this rig as versus to the iMac. When I mean a bit, I mean maybe a few hours, that's about it. Not much more. It's not really much more. The occasioncy when I like the amount of times I'm on the machine hasn't also changed. So if I'm using it twice a week, then I'm still using it twice a week. I haven't gone up to 3 or 4 or 5 times a week. Although it's usually most days it doesn't really turn off. So yeah. So yeah, that's how much time I spend on the machine. The type of use or what I do on this machine also hasn't changed too much, except for in the gaming scene. I game a frack ton more on this machine as I used to on that, as opposed to the iMac. This machine, as I don't know if you guys can see, always has my Steam library up. Always, it's just sitting there as a thing. Always have my Steam library up. It's always sitting there, so that's why I do game quite a lot on this machine as opposed to the other machine. Also because of the resolution, and that one has a really dodgy screen now. So yeah. So I do a lot more on this. If I need to do something like production work, like I need to work on big Word documents or big Excel spreadsheets, I'll of course work on this one over my laptop because it's more room, more land space. Just easier to do things on when you have more monitors. And the other thing is, how does this rig now fit into my life? Having the multiple monitors, having the horsepower this rig does, it fits into my life as a powerhouse rig, as my workstation rig. When my laptop isn't powerful enough, when my phone isn't powerful enough, I have the gonads in this computer to do whatever I feel that I need to be able to do. So that's great. So next is the phone, which is the next thing to get changed. Again, I went from the Nokia E71 to the HTC One M7. The big change here is how much I use the device. Before, it was sitting in my pocket. I was maybe using it 2.5, maybe 3 hours a day, and that was it. Now it's no more than a meter away from me. If it's not in my pocket, it's like less than a meter away from me. Right now, it's actually sitting right behind me. So like it's there. So yeah, it's always in constant reach. It's always on. It's always connected. Yeah, I'm much more connected to that device. Like I use it now at least 5 hours a day, if not more. If it goes off, I check it instantaneously. Other thing that's changed a lot is what I physically do with this device. That's the next bit. The types of uses, or what I actually do with this device. The big change there is I now open attachments for emails straight directly on the phone as opposed to going to my laptop. So there's a high level of convenience with that phone because I can just go into email. Oh wait, there's an email from the village residency. Oh, okay, I've got to open up the attachment because this is my rent, this is how much rent I need to pay. These sorts of things I can do straight on the phone. It's very convenient, it's very easy, it's very fast, as opposed to old phone, check email, go, okay, I got an email from the village residency. Great, now I've got to pull up my laptop, set up my laptop, connect it to the internet, then open up my emails, and then look at the email, and then open the attachment. There was a lot more steps involved with the old setup as opposed to the new setup. So that's the real big change there. And that change fits better into my life. So being able just to check emails on the fly, or do a bit of web browsing on the fly if I need to double check some information, or you look up something for a friend, I can do it straight on the fly, on the device, no questions asked, no problems. It's just boom, done, go, no problem. So yeah, it's just so much more convenient to have a smartphone that's actually genuinely smart. So yeah, so we'll move on to the third rig, the laptop. This again, time has increased. I used to use my laptop as my desktop replacement there for a bit, whilst I was changing between so my MacBook Pro, whilst my MacBook Pro was still around and working. It was kind of my stopgap. I had monitors hooked up to the MacBook Pro. I had that monitor hooked up to the MacBook Pro for quite some amount of time, whilst I was getting blood built and water cooled and doing all that stuff. So the time for my laptop did increase over a bit, but now it's dropped back a lot. So before I was upgrading blood, I was using it maybe 2.5, 3, maybe 4 hours a day. So a bit more than my old phone, but not much more. Now my laptop is about as used as my phone. It's used a lot. When I'm at uni, it's always out, it's always on, it's always doing something. Even if I'm just looking at news on it, or I'm looking at like Facebook on it or something, it's always there, always up, always active. So that's the thing about it. So the type of use, if I needed something in a bit bigger form, if there's let's say there's something I need to look at in detail, then of course I'm going to open on my my laptop, my new laptop, the Sony Vaio Fit 15A, which again, review will be linked in the description below. So yeah. So yeah, that's that. But yeah, the types of uses again. So if I need to open up something bigger than I look at, then of course I'm going to open it on the laptop, because it's so much easier. Flick it into that tablet mode, and bam, I can just put it on the table, and everyone can see it, and everyone can manipulate it really easy, because it's just a simple touch interface. It's a much more intuitive touch interface than, let's say, something like trying to use it on a phone where maybe 2 or 3 people can look at it at once. So a great example of this is whilst you're at uni, you've got to do a lot of group projects. So it's really handy to have, like, let's say, the assignment up, what we're all meant to be doing, on the table, on the tablet, and then everyone can look at it at the same time, and it's there, done, chunk, thud. Everyone can look at it, everyone can reference it, and it's just there. It makes things so easy. So yeah, it gets used a lot more in that aspect, in a lot more group aspect, when I want to share and show stuff. It gets used a lot in that aspect. Third thing is, how does this now fit into my life? It fits in my life better because I can use it a lot more on the fly. Having that tablet mode as opposed to just a laptop mode, it allows a lot more creative use of it. If I'm sitting in a train, for example, I'll flick it into tablet mode just to sit there and scroll through news, that sort of thing, or just read an ebook on it or something like that. I know it's a bit overkill for an ebook, but the thing I like about it is that the power of the screen. It's big enough, it's crisper and clearer than my phone screen. Well, not to put the phone screen down or anything, the HTC One M7 screen is pretty nice, although the laptop does kind of kick its ass. So for reading text and stuff, it's crystal clear. When I want to view pictures, it's crystal clear. Like, you can tell the difference on the laptop screen. You can tell the difference between a raw photo and a JPEG just by flicking back and forth on the screen. You can physically see the difference between the color depths and everything. Like, although they're taken at identically the same time, identically the same environment, you put it up onto one of these monitors, you can't tell any difference at all. You put it on the laptop, you can see it crystal clear as day, the difference. So that's where it comes into effect a lot more as well. How it fits into my life better is that color the reproduction and color accuracy of that display kicks butt over all my monitors. So all this video is edited on that laptop. Everything I do that needs a precision screen, i.e. good color reproduction, good color depth, on that screen, no matter what. So yeah. So that hopefully wraps it up. So yes, I use my phone a crap ton more for a crap ton more applications. My laptop gets used a lot more for social aspects of my life, when I want to share, or when I want to sort of share things and show things off, as opposed to my big rigs. That hasn't changed too much, although I now game a lot more than I used to on this machine, or on any machine in general. So my gaming hours have gone up a little bit. So that rounds out this video. As usual, any questions, post them in the comments below, and always be friendly with the comments. We don't want any idiots. And please like, subscribe, and comment as always. And thanks for watching Firebird Tech.